Hello all, welcome to the new Simply Put series by Kalam IS Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam IS. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 17th of January 2024. So the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper was having an important article about the 10th schedule, understanding the 10th schedule. So we will be discussing today as this is important from our exam point of view. Then coming to the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, two articles were important about the prior approval and second about the Kashmir. Why Kashmir is without snow. So these are the three articles we are going to discuss today, which are displayed on your screen. So the first article is about that understanding the 10th schedule. So recently what has happened that the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker, it has refused to disqualify 40 MLAs of the Eknath Shinde faction after recognizing it as the real Shiv Sena. So here comes the loopholes which are still there in the 10th schedule and because of which parties are taking opportunities to extend to meet their political ends. Okay, so we'll be discussing in detail what is a loophole about after the amendment that happened in the year 2003. So first coming to the intent behind the 10th schedule. So 10th schedule, it was introduced by 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act and it is named as Anti-Defection Law in the year 1985. So what was the intent behind bringing this 52nd Constitutional Amendment and the Anti-Defection Law? Because of the Ayaram Gayaram culture that was happening in the 1960s and 70s. There were a lot of defections happening of legislators from their parent parties and they created thus political instability, bringing down elected governments that was deterring the democracy, that was deterring the legislative governments. Okay, for that reason, we have brought this 10th schedule and the anti-defection law. So originally there were two exceptions in this disqualification law, in this anti-defection law. First exception was that 1/3 of the members of the legislative party, here I assume that you have completed your polity classes and you know about the 10th schedule and all the details about the 10th schedule is given in your polity book. Okay, so here we are discussing about the two exceptions that were given originally in the 10th schedule. First is that 1/3 members of the legislative party splitting to form a separate group. So it gave exception to the splitting of party. So whenever there is a case when 1/3 members of a legislative party they split to form a separate group, then that won't amount to disqualification under the anti-defection law, that is 10th schedule. Then again it also allowed the merger of the political party with another political party, which is to be approved by 2/3 of the members of the legislative party, which is given in para 4. And the first exception is given in para 3, right? So again it allowed the merger and in the first case it was allowing the split of the party. That means 1/3 of the members, if they want to split and separate of and form a separate group, then that was allowed. That won't amount to any disqualification from the legislature. But in 2003, considering the need to strengthen the anti-defection law, para 3, this splitting was omitted. Okay, that means now splitting is not allowed. If at all someone splits, then that will amount to disqualification. And now only exception is that regarding the political parties, that we allow the merger of the political party. That means if any member goes out of his party due to the merger of the party with another party, then the merger would not amount to the disqualification. The merger means when 2/3 of the members of the party they have agreed to such a merger. So here the number is important. When the 2/3 of the members of the party they agree to have a merge, then that won't amount to any disqualification. Hence, it was an exception still there in our 10th schedule regarding the anti-defection law. Okay, another exception is there. Can you tell me in the comment section which exception is still there under 10th schedule? It is about the speaker's role. It is about the presiding officer of the legislature. ठीक है? Then coming to the issues in the law, which is still existing? What are the loopholes still existing at this point of time that is causing political instability? So here we just discussed that the para 4 exception is still there, which allowed the merger. When two-thirds of the members, they want merger to any other political party, then that was allowed. That won't amount to disqualification. So here what is happening, that two-thirds of the members, they are defecting to their original political party and they are facing no consequences because of the exception still being there. For example, a state legislature party merging with the national political party, and it is not amounting to any disqualification. When more than two-thirds members of the state legislature party is merging with the national party, with the national political party, then that is done to escape the disqualification. This is one issue. Another issue is that regarding the role of speaker. We know that the authority to decide on the disqualification of the members is vested on the Speaker of the House. So they are expected to play a neutral role. They are expected to perform this constitutional role in a very neutral manner. But the past instances have shown that speakers, they are favoring the ruling dispensation. This is another issue. Okay, so there are some examples which you can quote it in your answer, which is related to the anti-defection law. Questions have already come in the mains and it can come also. So this becomes very, very important from your mains and prelims point of view. For prelims, you need to note the details of the 10th schedule. Okay, and this way also some analytical options can be there in order to confuse you in the prelims. Okay, and in the mains, direct question can come related to the issues in the anti-defection law. So this issue you can add on there, giving examples. So coming to the examples, in September 2019 in Rajasthan, 6 Bahujan Samajwadi Party MLAs, they merged themselves with the Congress party. Okay, that was their original political party. In September 2022 in Goa, when 8 out of 11 Congress MLAs, they merged themselves with the BJP. Okay, so here it is not visible, it is BJP. Then coming to the current case, that in Maharashtra what happened, that in June 2022, a faction of the Shiv Sena, they moved with 37 of the 55 MLAs. It is already two-thirds, more than two-thirds. So some faction of Shiv Sena, they are moving with the two-thirds of the members of the MLA and claiming that they are the real Shiv Sena. And now Speaker is also recognizing that faction as the real Shiv Sena. Okay, so this is how the speaker is also involved in the defection process. So these examples you can quote it in the exam. Then coming to the reforms needed. Here the Supreme Court in Sadiq Ali versus Election Commission of India in 1971 has called for a three-test formula. What is this three-test formula? This will determine that which faction is to be recognized as the original political party by the Election Commission. So here, this is the three-test formula. We need to know the aims and objectives of the party, and we need to know the affairs as per the party's constitution that reflect the inner party democracy. Then we can determine that which is the original political party, and also the majority in the legislative and the organization wings. So based on this three test, we can determine that which faction is to be recognized as the original political party as per Supreme Court. So this you need to write in your exam if at all you are writing the issue which we just discussed about the faction issue, okay, that we are discussing. This is one of the issue of the anti-defection law. There are so many issues, but this issue you need to write because this is very current. Okay, whenever you're writing any issues which is currently discussed, which was there in the news recently, then that will give you more marks. Okay, and whenever you are discussing this particular issue, don't forget to give this reform. Okay, when you are referring to any Supreme Court cases, then that will fetch you more marks, right? Then it is saying that coming to the speaker's role and the speaker's biasness favoring the ruling dispensation, how the reform can be brought in that area by setting up an independent tribunal to decide on the disqualification of the members. It will reduce the ambiguities surrounding the 10th schedule. It is not to be vested in the speaker, rather we can go for an independent tribunal who will be deciding on the disqualification of the members. And the real reform lies in institutionalizing the internal democracy through regular inner party elections so that we know what is going on, okay, which MLA, which member, which party member is with whom, and this has to happen within the strict monitoring by the election commission. So among all the reforms, this reinstating of internal democracy through the regular inner party elections is most important. Okay, so this was all about this topic's discussion. Then we move on to the next. That is why Kashmir and Ladakh are without snow this winter. What are its implications? So this time Gulmarg, which is one of the main tourist attraction of Kashmir, is without snow. So what has happened? There was no snow. So there are many factors discussed in this particular article. First one is that the Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh had a dry winter this time. Jammu Kashmir had 80% rainfall deficit in the month of December. Ladakh had almost no precipitation at all in January or December. And these are the two months where the winter precipitation happens in those areas, Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. And winter precipitation happens in the form of snowfall. So snowfall is nothing but the winter rainfall. But this time they had no rainfall at all in the month of December and January. Again, coming to the next reason, that there was a decline in the western disturbances events because of the gradual rise in temperature. And the gradual rise in temperature was seen because of the climate change issue, because of the global warming issue. Then there was prevailing El Nino event also in the eastern Pacific Ocean. So we'll be discussing all these factors one by one. So coming to the western disturbances. What are western disturbances? They are large eastward moving rain bearing wind systems. So how to remember eastward moving? Because they're moving towards India from west. Okay. You know that the western disturbances, west, they are moving from west, as the name suggests, to the east towards India. And in the west lies the Afghanistan and Iran, the Mediterranean Sea, the Atlantic Ocean. So that is how you should be remembering about the western disturbances, that they are eastward moving rain bearing wind system. Eastward, they are coming to the east and India is there. And from which side? From Afghanistan and Iran, which are the seas, Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Ocean. ठीक है? So they are the large eastward moving rain bearing wind systems that originate beyond the Afghanistan and Iran, picking up moisture from far off the Mediterranean Sea and even the Atlantic Ocean. They are the western disturbances, and they are the primary source of rainfall over the North India and the Northwest India during the post-monsoon months, during the winter months. Post-monsoon as in after the reversal, after the retreat of the southwest monsoon in the month of December. Okay, and now it is just 2 or 3 events a month that is happening with respect to the western disturbances. In normal cases, 5 or 6 events happen. So they have declined as much as 43% in the recent years. So that was the reason why we were telling that there was a reduced western disturbances this time, which led to less precipitation in the North India. Then coming to the rising temperatures. So here the rate of increase of temperature was all the more high in the upper elevated areas of Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh than in the plains, because Srinagar temperature was comparable this time to Delhi. Even in some days it was more than Delhi. So look at the changes what is happening because of the factors discussed here. Because of the El Nino effect, because of the reduced western disturbances, because of the climate change issues, because of the global warming issues. And the situation might have been more compounded by the El Nino impact. We all know that El Nino and Indian monsoon, they are inversely related. That means if the El Nino is on the rise, it is showing up, it is highlighted this year, then the Indian monsoon will come down. It will bring drought situation in India. They are inversely related. Let's now understand what is El Nino impact. So before that, we need to know what is a normal situation and what happens in the El Nino year. So in a normal year, what happens, please focus here in this figure. So this is the coast of South America and this is the coast of Australia and Indonesia this way. So here in the coast of Australia and Indonesia, a low pressure has developed. Okay, a low pressure develops in the region of northern Australia and Indonesia, and a high pressure develops over here, over the coast of Peru and Ecuador. As a result, you all know that whenever there is a pressure difference, then the wind blows from high pressure to low pressure. Because you must be remembering from your geography classes that whenever there is a low pressure, then the air above it rises. In order to fill that vacuum, because of the rising air, the air gushes from the high pressure area. So here also the air moves from high pressure to the low pressure area, that is from east to west. Whenever you're looking at the oceans, then it is the east part here and this is the west part here. So the trade winds over the Pacific Ocean, this is the Pacific Ocean, they move strongly from east to west. And the easterly flow of the trade winds carries the warm surface waters westward. So here there are warm waters on the surface, this side there are warm waters on the surface, so they carry the warm waters westward towards the coast of Australia. And in that way they will bring thunderstorms to Indonesia and coastal Australia. Along the Peru, what will happen? When the warm water is moving away from the coast of Peru, then the cold bottom, nutrient-rich water wells up. It is called as upwelling. So the cold bottom water, it will rise up to the surface to replace the warm water that is pulled to the west. So there is a upwelling of the cold water. There is a nutrient mix happening there, and because of which the fishing industry thrives there. The upwelling of the coast of Peru and Ecuador, it brings the nutrient-rich cold water to the surface, increasing the fishing stocks. Let's now come to the El Nino year. In the El Nino year, opposite will happen to that of normal year. So here what will happen? Here in this coast, it will not be high pressure, rather it will be a low pressure here. So the air pressure will drop over the large areas of the Central Pacific and along the coast of South America. And again in this side, there will be a weak high pressure. And this change in pressure pattern causes the trade winds to be reduced. And due to the reduced trade winds, there will be accumulation of the warm water over here. So when there is accumulation of the warm ocean water at the coast of South America, then there will be no upwelling of the cold water from the bottom. Hence, there will be no mixing of nutrients along the coast of Peru, and hence the fishing stocks will be reduced. And what about the rainfall? So here in the normal year, because of the warm ocean currents traveling here, because of the low pressure here, there was a lot of thunderstorms happening. But here in this case, in the El Nino year, because of no rainfall, there will be drought situation. There will be drought situation in the Western Pacific, this area. and there will be lot of rains over here. Here the rains will increase, here the rains will decrease. So in case of India, there will be severe droughts along with the nation Australia, South Africa and Indonesia. So let's summarize over here. In normal conditions, in the Eastern Pacific, that is the coast of Peru and Ecuador, the cold ocean water will be there, that will be good for fishing. And in the Western Pacific, what will happen? That is in the Indonesia and Australia, there will be a lot of warm ocean water, and because of which there will be a plenty of rains. But the reverse will be happening in the El Nino condition. In Eastern Pacific, that is along the coast of Peru and Ecuador, there will be a lot of warm water, and the fishing industry will be suffering. And again, in the Western Pacific, that is along the coast of Australia and Indonesia, there will be cold water, hence drought situation, no rains. Okay, so this is the summary of the El Nino effect. Let's now see the impact. What will happen if there is no snow? What will happen if there is no precipitation in Kashmir and Ladakh? So we have divided the implications into short term and long term. So coming to the short term implications, there will be a lot of forest fires because of the dry spell. And when there is a lot of forest fires, then there will be agricultural drought situation. There will be a drop of the crop yield, drop in the crop production. Then again, when there is less snow, less precipitation, then there will be early spring. Early spring means early flowering, and early flowering means there will be a reduction in the yield. Then it will also impact the local economy when apples and the saffron production takes a hit, which are the direct ingredients of the local economy there. So their local economy will be impacted. Then coming to the long-term implications, because of the less snow, there will be generation of less hydroelectricity, and it will also impact the drinking water supply. Because of the scanty snowfall, because of the less precipitation, there will be little recharge of the groundwater. So there will be less supply of drinking water there. So you can divide the implications into short term and long term, and this is what is the implications that we learnt about. Then we come to the third article, that what is prior approval and why is it needed before investigating the public officials accused of corruption. So why this is in news? Because recently the Supreme Court has delivered a split verdict in the case of former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu's plea to quash an FIR which he is alleged to be involved in the skill development scam case. So how it is a split verdict? Because of the two justices giving their different verdicts. Justice Bose held that the prior approval of the central government or the state government was the necessary thing, which the state CID did not had when it opened the case, when it opened the inquiry. And what did Justice Trivedi said? He said that it was necessary to seek approval, but only in the cases which were committed after 2018, when this requirement was introduced of taking the prior approval. So what is this prior approval requirement? So this prior approval requirement was brought very recently in the year 2003 through an amendment to the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946. This act governs bodies like CBI. So we have brought this prior approval requirement through an amendment in 2003, where it introduced a section 6A, which said that we need to seek approval from the central government during investigating any alleged officer under the Prevention of Corruption Act, if the employee who is in question over here held a rank above the joint secretary. This was the condition. Then only we need an approval from the central government if the employee is holding a rank higher than the joint secretary. But in 2014, Supreme Court struck down this requirement. But again, after 4 years, in 2018, amendment was brought to the Prevention of Corruption Act, where it introduced the Section 17A. It said that if one commits a crime under the Act while discharging their official duties, then the investigators must receive approval from the central or the state government or any competent authority that is concerned to open an inquiry or investigation in that case. So here the condition was that the officer has to be in his official duty. Then only we require the approval from the central or the state government. But there is a issue over here. What is the issue? When there is a condition attached that the public official has to be in his or her official duty while committing that offense, then only we can seek the approval from the state government or the central government. That is an issue. Because it is very difficult to determine if the offense was committed by the public official while they were discharging their duties. This is number one problem. Number two problem is with the police officers, because the investigation has to be done by the police officers, and we all know that how police officers can protect the corrupt officials. Thus, placing this burden on the police officers and investigating agencies would in effect protect those corrupt officials, and thus the levels of corruption would rise ultimately. So these are the two important issues lying with the prior approval requirement. Again, in Supreme Court cases also we see varied verdicts. For example, in CBI versus RR Kishore case, Supreme Court has given that the officials cannot claim any immunity, cannot claim any exception under section 6A, even if the offense was committed before 2018. Okay, 2018 is the year where we brought this prior approval requirement. Then in 2018, former Delhi Police Commissioner Rakesh Asthana case, Supreme Court said that there is no need for the prior approval to lodge an FIR. Again in Chandrababu Naidu case, split verdict has been given. Split verdict on what? Whether it can be applied retrospectively or not. Before 2018. If someone has committed the offense before 2018, if he is to be held, if someone requires the approval of the central and the state government or not.